Number 3, MC.
It was a long time ago that I went through civics class. Are you able here now to describe the legal process to amend the Constitution?
Absolutely. The legal process would be, well, I would say there are a number of ways to amend the Constitution. The one that we're most familiar with is if you get 2/3 of the U.S. Congress to propose an amendment, then it will go to the states to be ratified, and if 3/4 of the states ratify it, it becomes an amendment. That's how all 27 of the current amendments became part of the Constitution. There's another way described in Article 5 called the Constitutional Convention, which is if 3/4 of the states if 2/3 of the states call for a constitutional convention, then anything that is proposed gets sent to the states for ratification, and if 2/3 of the states ratify it, it becomes a part of the Constitution. There's another way, and that is, of course, and here's a trick question: how could 5 people amend the U.S. Constitution? The Supreme Court. So actually, if there is a political movement sufficient, then you could actually get the court to change its position. And then there's another way to amend or change the Constitution. And that's to have a revolution and write the whole damn thing over again. And I got to tell you, folks, I say that very clearly. I'm down with any of those. But I've also talked to lots of people who have been part of violent revolutions, and they are scary, and they are ugly, and they are brutal, and they are horrible. And I do not want to be part of a violent revolution in the United States of America. And I am reminded of the great words of John F. Kennedy, who said, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable." And I think that I am committed that we should actually have a non-violent revolution in this country. We should follow what Václav Havel and his followers did in Czechoslovakia. We should take a look at what happened in the Philippines under the Aquinos. We should take a look and learn about Lech Walesa in Poland and the Solidarity Labor Movement. It can happen. It is possible to have profound non-violent revolutions if the people are educated and disciplined enough to stand up to power, and not to say, "Please, sir, I want a little justice," but to actually say, it's like what Gandhi actually told the Viceroy who fumed at Gandhi, and he said, what do you expect me to do? And Gandhi said, "I expect you to leave." And the Viceroy said, "Are you kidding me? We're the most powerful. You think we're just going to leave?" And Gandhi is reported to have looked directly at the Viceroy and said, "Yes." I got to tell you, the most powerful thing that the Americans could do, and I want to say specifically the most powerful thing the American workers can do. You know what this means for a worker?
No work?
No work. We make this country run. Our sweat makes this country run. When, and I don't mean if, I mean when, we have actually built this movement to not only really recognize the inherent power that we have, and then that we are willing to exercise it in a nonviolent way, we will turn this country around on a dime. We will live in a different world, and that, MC, is another way to amend the Constitution.
How long will it take?
15 to 20 years is my estimation to completely transform the society. I ain't even joking.
I was talking about the strike.
No. I don't know about that. Who is number 4?
I'm 4.
Yes, Caesar.
Chris Hedges says he likes the word rebellion rather than revolution. I don't know if that's
Okay,
equally good, but I'm just nodding my head over everything. And as you're going along, I was thinking of things to say, so I ask you a million questions. But
Hey, I want to thank y'all for coming out. What'd you think?
Thank you. Thank you for telling the truth.
All right, man. Thank you for coming. Did you sign up? We're going to be in touch? All right, man. Thank you so much.
I was just reading a book called Losing Ground about environmentalism, that whole movement, and
Yes.
how it was co-opted by the mainstream movements, and grassroots is now coming back. But in it mentions that Thurgood Marshall actually told Martin Luther King that he should not be doing this civil disobedience, that it was for the birds, that it wouldn't accomplish anything. And Martin Luther King said his three guidelines, if you will, are agitate, legislate, and litigate, that they all went hand in hand. Also, I wondered if you had heard of the book by Rushworth Kidder called Moral Courage. When you were speaking of courage, it reminded me of that. It's a wonderful book. It explains it in great depth and gives many examples of courage. So I'll be happy to send that to you.
Thank you, I will happily look at it.
Well, I mean, I'll send you the email to how to reach it.
Thanks, Wally.
And then
Good to see you.
also on Nation of Change, which is one of those websites like Truth Dig and Fun. Today there's one on 5 ways that the current protests are like the real Boston Tea Party, which is very interesting to read. And my final observation is a question. Have you thought at all about the Federal Reserve?
Oh, I've thought a lot about the Federal Reserve, so I appreciate all your other comments. But since you asked a specific question, let's be clear, folks, we need to abolish the Federal Reserve in the United States of America. And by saying that, we will join with principled conservatives who are equally committed to abolishing the Federal Reserve. And then I'll go one step further and say, and then we need to create a national bank and democratically control the money supply for the United States of America. And then we need to create state banks in every single state. Because, of course, we all know that we're in a debt crisis now, right? Except for one state. What state is not in a debt crisis?
Dakota.
North Dakota. Why is North Dakota not in a debt crisis? Because they have a state bank. Because if you have a state bank, you see, you can actually use that money for governmental public purposes interest-free, right? So much of the public debt is actually debt that we're paying to private bankers just for the privilege of having our own money. That's nuts. That's just nuts. And then you go one step further and say, if we actually democratically control the money in this country, I'm reminded, I forget who it was who said it, but somebody is famous for having said, I don't care, if you let me control the money, I don't care who makes the laws. So the Federal Reserve is something that I think that we actually ought to be putting more energy and time into. Who's number 5? Yes, sir.
Kind of a method question following up on why go on the amendment route. So you look at the 14th Amendment, which you read it's one of the best things we have in our Constitution, the ultimate of saying rich, powerful cannot oppress. That is one of the things that has been used to actually instill the idea of corporate personhood and give the power to rich corporations to oppress. So 2 things. 1, why go the route of an amendment? And 2, since we know that that on its own is not enough to solve the problem, how do we also have, what else does it take to keep what we have in the Constitutions actually read the way they should be and the way they were intended?
Well, the short answer is agitate, legislate, litigate. I mean, I guess that's, and I'm not, I'm very serious about this. I believe we have to use all the tools in the toolbox. We do have to take ourselves seriously. If we're going to be part of a movement that actually wins, then we have to understand that currently the Supreme Court has stolen our Constitution away from us. And I think that we make a mistake when we cede any avenue. We need to be everywhere because we are everywhere. And, and I want to tell you this, folks. So here we are in the home of Lee and Hardy Lowe. We're having this conversation, and it's very powerful and it's very important. And I can tell you, I have been on the road for 6 straight weeks in a different community every single night. And sometimes it's 12 to 15. It's been as many as 125. But people are convening in spaces just like you are right now, and grappling with these kinds of questions. This is a movement. It is happening. It is happening. And the fact is, brother, that if you are mostly inspired to do nonviolent civil disobedience, then do that. If somebody else is mostly inspired to run for office on this platform, then do that. If somebody else is inspired to become a lawyer and go into court and fight, then do that. We need to actually be doing all of these things. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying stop doing that other thing and work on move to amend. It's not either or, it's both and. So did I have a number 6? Lee, the other,
Yes.
not the lesser.
I loved your, popping the bubble in the mythology of the U.S. And I similarly talked about we were founded on a genocide, slavery, and subjugation of women. And what I want to know is, the system seems to be doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Yes.
So why would we think that doing an amendment to a constitution that is succeeding beautifully for a certain 1% would be a route to fix the very problem that it has created? And not the Constitution per se, but the system has created the mess, and yet we're using this system to fix it. And I'm just wondering if there's not going to be a more radical paradigm shift to come up with the solution. And this is my other question. When people literally are dying, to invest energy in an amendment rather than doing something that stops killing. I just go, where do we put energy and attention and effort?
Well, I guess I would say it this way, that I've never been part of a movement that moved as broadly and deeply as Move to Amend is moving, and it's working. And I feel pretty excited about that. And if there was another movement that was more radical and looked more effective, I would join that movement. So when I would love nothing more than to be overtaken by some other movement that because everybody's saying, Move to Amend, or they're just too liberal, or they're too, they're not thinking big enough. Like I'd happily have that happen. Mostly right now, what I find, Lee, is that I'm actually having to drag people this far. So if you're saying that we need to go further, all I would say is I agree with you, and let's get to it. I mean, what's the plan?
Yeah,
What's the plan?
And I do appreciate you saying that because, and I can't remember who, and the exact number eludes me, but it was at one of the pioneers, the statistic that 95%, that's the number that I recollect, and it's 90 plus at any rate, believe that corporations have too much power.
Right.
There are not very many issues where you get consensus in the 90s.
That's right.
So in that sense, I'm down. That does already cross a broad spectrum of obvious allegiances.
Right.
So I go, God, this is the system that broke it. Why would we expect an amendment to fix it?
Well, I mean, I don't think that, I don't expect an amendment to fix every problem that there is, but I do expect that I look at throughout American history that movements have been required to actually make systemic change, and at Move to Amend, you should know, like very candidly, like we are talking about ourselves as a movement. And we're also talking about ourselves about calling for something much deeper than an amendment, but actually a series of amendments. And we're actually talking about the idea of actually constitutional renewal. What would it be like if we actually said, really we should actually talk about human rights and understand that the Constitution is the codification of a social contract, and we think that everybody should have access to health care as a fundamental human right, and that ought to actually be in our Constitution. What if we actually said that people should have a right to enough food to eat, and that we're going to actually put that into our Constitution? Or that you have a right to clean air and clean water. So this is the thing. I'm totally down with actually making it much broader and deeper, but I will tell you, Lee, like when I say that, there are lots of other people then who will immediately say, oh, slow down, slow down, slow down. So, I mean, it's a constant dance for, how to actually go forward. I saw that I actually thought this will be the last time we'll do this, but raise your hand. Were you?
Yeah, I was going to ask if the
Okay.
stack was still open.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do it. Don, 1.
Lauren.
Laura, 2. Sir, you're 3. 4. 5. We'll do these 5, and then we'll break up and have some conversation, and I'll go faster with my responses.